You're listening to the Life Coaching Secrets Podcast, episode 129. Did you know that life coaches are needed now more than ever? I'm Frank Macri, founder of Thriving Coach Academy. I've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped them launch their own successful coaching businesses. If you want to make an incredible income and impact as a coach and have a lot of fun doing it, I'll show you exactly how to get it done. This is Life Coaching Secrets. What's up, coaches? In this episode, I'm going to talk about what to do when you find yourself wanting to give up. Now, maybe you have big goals, big dreams, and big aspirations, and there have been times where you just feel like you want to throw in the towel and you question why you started pursuing those to begin with. I want to break that down in this episode and share with you ways that you can address these moments of your life where you are in what I call a funk. Now, maybe you've heard this term before, being in a funk. There are different characteristics when someone is in a funk. One of those characteristics is you have very low energy, so you might feel drained. You might find that you don't have the usual energy or vitality that you typically have. There might also be a lot of some heavy emotions that you feel. Maybe you feel a lot of sadness, irritability, anxiety, apathy, or frustration. Perhaps you have an overall loss of interest in things that you used to enjoy, but now you find it's harder to engage in those activities. And overall, maybe you just feel stuck and you've got yourself in some negative thoughts and emotions that are hard for you to experience. So I want to share with you, how do you navigate periods of your life where you're in a funk or you feel like life is just overall falling apart? Now, the first thing I want to say is that it is normal to have chapters of our life where you don't believe in yourself. I want to normalize it firstly. In the decade that I've been in the coaching industry, there have been times when I've also been in a funk. And it's tough when you're in those moments, but every single time it passes and you get back to where you were. So that is the first thing I want you to understand, that it is normal to have moments in your life where you're not your quote best self, and that these periods of life are not permanent. So one expression that's useful to remind yourself of, especially if you're in a funk right now, is the expression, "This too shall pass." This too shall pass. Okay, nothing is permanent. So you might think, if you're in a funk right now, this is never going to go away, or I'm never going to be successful, or I'm setting myself and my life up for failure. I want you to take a deep breath and remind yourself that as tough as things feel for you right now, they will pass. I promise you that this experience you're feeling right now, it is going to pass. Maybe you've been feeling like this for some time now, some weeks or even months. And you're like, when is this going to stop? When am I going to get back to my normal self? You first got to remind yourself that it is normal for even the most successful people to not always be at their A game. That is so normal. And sometimes, as I reveal in this episode, it's what we actually need to sustain ourselves in our life. Now, one of the thoughts that you might have when you're in a funk is you might think, how do I get out of this? How do I push through all of these tough feelings that I'm going through right now? So what this is resistance. There's a part of you that's likely resisting the funk that you're in. Okay, and one of the most important things for you to do is to lean in to whatever it is you are feeling. So you want to give yourself permission to be with all that's coming up for you, and not place judgment around it. Because the more that you start judging yourself for being in a funk, or you start resisting it and trying to force yourself to change it or get out of it, the more difficult it's going to be, and you're actually going to prolong your low period of your life. I know it sounds backwards, but when you're actually able to lean in and be with your feelings, you accelerate your experience of them. So what if instead needing to push through all of these emotions you're having right now, The solution is really leaning in, being still, pausing, and just noticing what's coming up for you and allowing yourself to feel. Okay? Have you ever had moments where you knew you needed to let out a cry, and then the moment you finally gave yourself permission to let out a cry, you felt so much better, right? Sometimes you really need to feel it to heal it. All right? So if you're thinking, what if I just keep feeling this? And what if it never passes? What if I just keep falling into this deep, deep, deep well of emotions? Think of emotions like just clouds in the sky. Okay, so we all have emotions that come and go. Nothing is permanent. Think of all the emotions that come as clouds in the sky, right? Sometimes there's going to be some dark, large clouds and thunderstorms, but they always pass at some point, right? So as difficult as they might be, you want to allow yourself to let the emotions pass through you like clouds in the sky and just notice yourself seeing those emotions and being a witness to them. Like imagine if we argued with the clouds in the sky and we said, hurry up, you need to move faster, right? That would be ridiculous. What we do is we just notice them. So emotions are like clouds in the sky. They are not permanent. They will just move through you when you allow yourself to just be with them. Now, one of the reasons why you might find yourself resistant when you're in a funk, and one of the reasons why people often make these low periods of their life even worse is because of some of the masks that we often see and wear in society. So you might wonder, what is a mask? Like when I use that term, this is one of the coaching terms that we use inside the academy. So a mask is a metaphorical facade or a persona that someone feels that they need to embody and present themselves with in the world in order to influence the way people perceive you. So in a way, a mask could be a way that we cope in our life. It could be a way that we conform to different expectations. And most commonly, it's a way in which we try to avoid certain judgment from other people. And sometimes our mask is a way in which we receive validation and recognition. So sometimes people become very attached to their mask that they're wearing that they forget who they truly are. And that's one of the amazing transformations that you go on when you work with a coach is you learn how to really put down your mask and be the true version of you that you are and realize that that is enough. So one of the common masks that I see is the mask that I like to call the strong mask. So this is where you present yourself to the world as someone who feels like they don't have any vulnerabilities that they need to showcase. So you present a very strong exterior to the world. You take on this appearance of being someone that's emotionally resilient or unflappable or invulnerable to challenges or emotional pain. So you might be seen as someone that's usually very reliable, very composed, and maybe even stoic at times. Maybe you avoid expressing your own emotional needs, and maybe you avoid seeking help from others because you might think that when you ask for help, that is a sign of weakness, or you might feel like you are burdening others when you ask for help. Now, again, this is called the strong mask. Maybe you recognize some of this in yourself, or you might recognize it with some of your clients or close people in your life. One of the biggest drawbacks of having the strong mask is that it can lead to emotional repression. It could lead to you isolating yourself, and it could lead to having a sense of loneliness. It could also prevent you from getting support when you really need it. Like I know that I had this mask come up for me at an earlier chapter of my life, and it was like, I need to be the strong, independent person, and I don't want to ask anybody for help. So I'm better off just doing things by myself. And I remember when I was trying to start a business, I was presenting myself as the strong, independent one, and it was holding me back because I realized that if I wanted to have a big impact and if I had a big mission, it's going to require big support. And I had to put down my mask and allow myself to receive support and get the mentorship and coaching and training in order to really see all my big goals and dreams come to fruition. So this is one of those, like sometimes people think of it as being a rugged individualist. Like we have different ways that we might praise people for their masks when really the mask is what's holding them back from getting to that next level in life. So you might think, oh, I should just be, if are in a funk right now, a sign that you have this strong mask is if you're telling yourself, I shouldn't really cry, or I should be able to push through this. I can't show my tears. Vulnerability means I'm being weak. I need to just get through this and stop feeling. So there's a lot of shoulds and expectations that you're putting on yourself to really present as, quote, strong. And it might be very scary. It might be very scary to put down this mask, because it could present you with emotions that feel vulnerable to you, emotions that you just haven't connected with in some time. So some questions that you might want to consider if you have this strong mask is, what if it's okay for you to show and express your emotions, right? What if it's okay for you to show tears? What if it's okay for you to cry, right? What if that's really what you need? What's the benefit of you expressing your emotions and letting them out? Another question is, what if you don't need to push through anything? What if you don't need to push through? What if instead you can just be? You can allow? What if you can just be still? And then finally, what if vulnerability was a strength? What if vulnerability was actually a sign of strength? Because it really is, right? Vulnerability is one of the most beautiful strengths that you can have. It is not a sign of weakness, right? When people are able to truly be vulnerable, it allows them to have the freedom to feel whatever they're feeling and express it without judgment. And this is one of the most courageous and strong acts that you can really have. So what if your vulnerability could actually be a strength? So again, this is all coming from the strong masks. And when you're in a funk in your life and you feeling yourself wanting to force yourself through certain emotions that you're not familiar with, it could be helpful to look at, do I have the strong mask? Do I typically have this part of myself that feels like I need to present as strong and so composed, right? Like, what if you can just allow yourself an ugly cry? That might be what you really need in order to start your healing and allow you to start moving to whatever's next. Now, the second most common mask that often comes up when people experience this funk that they get stuck in is the overachieving mask. Okay, so people have this overachieving mask. Those are the people that often set very high standards for themselves. They strive to outperform others in various aspects of their life, whether it be academics or work or personal achievements. They often have very perfectionistic tendencies. Sometimes they might have workaholic behavior, and overall a very strong desire for other people's approval and recognition. So they might have a drive to constantly prove their worth to others and also to themselves. Now, I am definitely guilty of wearing this overachieving mask at various points in my life. It started when I was in school, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to outperform my peers in school and try to get the top grade. Like, I wanted to get the 100%. If I was getting a 99 or a 98, it wasn't enough. And I put all this pressure on myself to perform better and be at the best. And I set a very high standard, and it came with a lot of pressure. Now, one of the drawbacks that comes with wearing this overachieving mask is that while you can have several accomplishments in your life, it could also result in you burning out and being very stressed and having a constant state of dissatisfaction that you have. So a lot of people who wear the overachieving mask, they struggle with having a work-life balance, and they experience a lot of anxiety when they're faced with failure or even with criticism. So another sign that you're having this come up for you, and maybe you're like, I want to give up, is you start thinking things like, I'm being so lazy because I'm not as productive as I was. I'm falling behind. I'm failing. Oftentimes, it's that workaholic tendency that the overachieving mask causes you to have that makes you falsely believe that moments when you are slowing down, that there's something wrong. So something to consider if you are noticing in yourself this overachieving mask is, what if you didn't need to do all the time? Like, what if you didn't always have to be doing something? What if you can rest and recharge? So I love this metaphor because I think it's really helpful for someone that is used to being an overachiever. If you think of you and your potential as like a battery, right? No matter what it is, what kind of any machine that operates with a battery, there comes a point where you need to recharge that battery in order for it to function again. So if you have a cell phone, a smartphone, right? You usually charge your phone overnight so that way you can use it the next day. If you have I have an electric car, I charge it overnight so I can continue to use it. Even when you are exercising, if you're someone that's very much into fitness, you might have an understanding that it's actually counterintuitive to lift heavy weights every single day. That can do more harm than good on the body. Your body needs to recharge. It is so important for you to have optimal muscle growth and optimal fitness, for you to have days where you rest and you recharge. This is something that allows your muscles to repair and grow. So all humans, all batteries, everything needs to recharge. And sometimes people wait until they're at that 1% before they realize that they've been really needing to charge up all along. And I'm totally that person. I don't know about you, but sometimes if I'm on my phone or my laptop, I know that it's getting down to 10%. I'm getting those notifications, but I'm waiting until it's at that very 1%. And sometimes I have to end up running to the charger, or the device ends up dying, and now and I end up not having the device and having to wait for it to charge back up. Okay? So if you are someone who very much has that overachieving mask, then it's something you've got to remind yourself of, and saying it's okay for periods of my life to not always be so productive and not always be in achieving mode. It's okay at times to embrace moments of recovery and relaxation and rest. In fact, it's essential. One of my mentors gave a really great analogy to this as well. He mentioned the concept of yin and yang, and said that in order for you to really be someone that's very productive, right? Oftentimes the yang energy is more about like the masculine drive and the pushing and the being productive and achieving. And he's like, if you want to be 10 out of 10 yang with your business, where you are very much getting things done, you're very productive, you're making a lot of money, you're being very strong and out there, then it's also going to require that you have 10 out of 10 yin energy in your business, which is more of like the feminine, the resting, the relaxing, the receiving, the nurturing part of your energy. So if you want to be 10 out of 10 with your overall productivity and achievement, it means you've also got to be 10 out of 10 with your self-care and your nurturing and your recovery. Now think about that right now. How much you care and prioritize right now your productivity and your goals. If you're putting yourself at like an 8, 9, or a 10, then it's also interesting to ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you also prioritize your rest and your recovery and your relaxation? Because if your energy and your focus is more on your productivity, so if your first score is higher than your second score, that means you're going to lead to burnout. Okay, that means you're going to push yourself too far, and you're going to end up in moments of your life where you realize that you need to recharge, and you might end up in a funk and want to give up altogether. But that can be avoided, or at least it can be, when you're in those funk moments can be reduced when you're able to really give yourself the recharging that you need. Like all batteries need to be recharged. You can't train the muscles every single day. Now, a couple other things to keep in mind if you're in a funk, just a few other points of advice here, is that sometimes our brain has this tendency to do what's called catastrophizing. Okay, so this is one of we call it in coaching a cognitive distortion. And this is when your brain does silly things that goes against what's actually true, and it distorts reality. And catastrophizing is a common way in which people distort reality by imagining the worst case scenario, and they start to create all of these terrible what ifs. So it's very important that when your brain starts catastrophizing, when there might be actual bad things happening, but what your brain's doing is it's taking the bad and making it extreme. What you've got to do is you've got to call that behavior out. You've got to actually say to yourself, oh, there my brain goes. There it goes catastrophizing. And then you have to start finding evidence of why that is not necessarily true. Okay, so I find in my own experience, I've had a lot of catastrophizing happen when it comes to my health, because when I was a teenager, I had some health issues come up with my thyroid, and I noticed that from all of the stress I experienced at that time in my life, getting so much blood work done, seeing so many doctors, being on so much medication. I took with me, after all that resolved and healed, I took with me some catastrophizing that I would use with my health, and it would create a lot of stress for me. If I had a headache, I thought I was having stroke and I'd have to go to the ER. And there was a time in my life where every year I was going to the ER and I was getting sent home right away because the doctor was saying, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. You just need an aspirin. You're okay. So sometimes we catastrophize. It is a very common cognitive distortion. You've got to, again, call it out. So if you're in a funk right now and your brain is telling you that you're going to be a failure in life, everything's falling apart, like this is the worst thing that could ever happen, you've got to say, okay, there my brain goes to catastrophizing. How true is all of that? How true is it that my life is really falling apart? How true is it that this is the end of everything? Because it's really not true. And remembering what I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, this too shall pass. Okay, this too shall pass. Nothing is permanent. And then a couple other tips to consider as well. There's one great exercise. This is an exercise that was it's come up with a lot of psychologists who study positive psychology. And inside the academy, we do have a continuing education course on positive psychology where we dive deeper into this. It's one of the most famous positive psychology interventions, and it's called 3 Good Things. And this is when at the end of every day, you reflect on what are the 3 best things that you experienced over that day. So when you're in a funk, this is a really amazing intervention for you to apply with yourself. It's very simple. It's really effective when you can write it down. So what were the 3 best things that you experienced today? Now, whenever it is you're listening to this episode right now, I want you to take a moment and ask yourself this question. Even if you're just starting out your day or you're midway through your day, you can still come up with 3 good things. And as your day goes on, maybe you will update that list and have 3 better things that occur during your day. So what are the 3 best things that you experienced today? Try this right now. And what was your role in that experience? So what I mean by that is rather than saying, oh, it was sunny out, you can say it was sunny out and I was able to notice the sunshine. I was able to feel the warmth on my skin, and I was able to take in that experience. So see how that's more powerful because you're seeing your role in the experience. So what are the 3 best things that you've experienced today? If you do this exercise every day for 2 weeks, research has found that it significantly reduces the symptoms of depression and overall enhances your well-being just by doing this every day for 2 weeks. So again, what are the 3 good things in your day? And personally, what I found to be really helpful whenever you are in a funk as well is putting yourself in environments where your energy is able to shift. So one example is just going outside, right? Just getting yourself, sometimes that might be the hardest thing for you to do is just get out of bed, especially when you're in really low moments. I've been there at times where I just don't want to get out of bed. And I've had a lot of coaching on myself. I've also been through a lot of therapy. And still, like I said, it's inevitable. Even the most high achieving and most successful people, they have low chapters in their life, and that is normal. So for you, it might just be getting outside and going on a walk just for 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's going to really, being outside, being in nature, being just outdoors is going to create such an amazing shift in your energy. It's such a simple thing you can do. And if that's your biggest accomplishment in the day, just going on a 10-minute walk, then that is something worthy of just praising yourself for. So in summary, as I wrap up this episode on what to do when you're in a funk, there's a few things to consider. First of all, that it's totally normal to have moments like this, and it is impermanent, right? This too shall pass. Okay, instead of trying to push through the emotion, see how you can recognize and lean in to what emotions you're feeling. If you're feeling like you've got to cry, give yourself permission to cry. Noticing the masks that you might be wearing. If you are someone who usually presents as the strong one, okay, what if you are allowed to be vulnerable? What if you don't need to push through? What if it's okay to show tears? If you're someone who has the overachieving mask, right? What if you need to give yourself permission to recharge? What if you're not being lazy, but you're just nurturing yourself? If you're allowing yourself to relax, if you're bringing the battery back up to 100%. Next is doing that 3 good things exercise, recognizing all the 3 best things that you experience in the day. Do that every day for 2 weeks. See what a difference it makes for you. And then finally, getting outside, going on a little walk, being in nature is sometimes the most amazing thing that you can do for your well-being. Oh, and I also almost forgot, again, catastrophizing, addressing any catastrophizing thoughts, saying to yourself, oh, there my brain goes catastrophizing. This is not permanent though. That's just my brain creating the worst case scenario and questioning how true is it that that worst case is actually going to happen. And then you'll realize it's not so true. All right, that's what I got in this episode on what to do when you want to give up. And I appreciate you listening to this episode, especially if you're in that period right now where you're leaning into that. I know how it can be very difficult. And hopefully this podcast can also serve as a resource to support you in navigating through that chapter of your life. Now, before you go, I am going to end this episode with a snippet from one of our students in the academy sharing her incredible story of success as a coach. So please listen to her story and also listen to her tips for you on how you can be successful as well. So enjoy the coach's story, and I will see you in the next episode.
My name is Allison Cowan. The moment I discovered coaching was through working with a coach. I became so inspired and came to realize that my life has led me to coaching and that I was born for this. I did a lot of searching and due diligence to find a program that was my match. As I continued searching, I was continually drawn back to Thriving Coach Academy. I wanted a program that was ICF accredited because I value excellence and credibility. I started with Frank's introductory offer of Coaching 101 and began listening to his podcasts. Then when I realized that I was doing this repeatedly, I knew head, heart, soul, intuition that this was right for me. It was filled with a lot of what ifs and a lot of fear. I was concerned about investing the money. What if this doesn't work for me? And all of these what ifs and fears have been completely obliterated. My financial wins have actually blown my mind. Within 3 months of enrolling in TCA, I had 3 clients hire me in a day that paid for my investment in the academy. When I really look at how much I have learned and have accomplished in such a short time, there are no words. I'm astounding myself. But it's also been through the belief, the belief from the academy, which continues to inspire me to keep moving, even if I'm making mistakes, and just to keep trying and keep going. And that has been my inspiration. Even before being certified, I had a month where I earned over $10,000 a month as a coach. But before the academy, I was charging, $50 per hour and wasn't offering package programs. And since then, I am now charging $250 per hour. With all of the support that I've gotten and all of the teaching that I've gotten, I couldn't have even imagined this. I knew I wanted to do this and I was completely happy where I was, but wow, I see my business thriving and expanding in ways that will be beneficial not only to myself, but to others. For me, it's not only about the money, but my personal growth and the teaching that I've received, becoming an effective coach and understanding the artistry of it, being part of a caring and supportive community. Those things matter just as much. There is such a safe environment held. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to make a mistake. I was graciously taught and guided and encouraged to try again. And that mistakes were how we learned. The other thing is belief. I've had others believe in me in the past. I have never felt so believed in as much as I have through TCA. I can't wait to wake up every morning to get started. If anybody is thinking that they're too old to learn something new, I started my business at 55 years old. I can't imagine retiring from it. I want to do this the rest of my life. And we never know when our time is going to be up. So we might as well just go in and do what we love.
Hey, would you like access to powerful coaching tools you can use on yourself and clients right away? For being a listener of the podcast, I'm giving you a VIP guest pass to get a sneak peek into my coach training program. Inside, you'll learn our coaches' secret tool they use to transform their clients' lives. And you'll also get a training on how to launch a coaching business. Just head over to www.thrivingcoachacademy.com/VIP to get started. I'll see you on the inside.